Okay, this is our next notes. Factoring trinomials is ax squared plus minus x bx plus c, page 18 and page 19. So you can have that. And then let me rotate my spiral. So here we go. Factoring trinomials, ax squared plus bx plus c. Here's our first example. Both symbols are a pluses. Make sure that we're factoring these. Notice I drew a table here on the side for this one. Okay. Our first step is check is there GCF. If I look at this, they don't all have an x, so it's clear, and 5 is prime, so we don't have to do anything to that one. So our first step is to find the factors of the first term. What goes into 5 is 1 and a 5, and I'm going to put an x with each one because the x splits up equally, and that's the only thing that goes into 5. Then I'm going to go to the third term, and this would be 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. And then for this type of factoring, I'm also going to repeat, so I'm going to go 4, 3, 6, 2, and 12, 1. I'm going to go all the way on each one of these for this type of factoring. Okay, the next thing now is I'm going to highlight my first columns in yellow, and then I'm going to highlight my second column in orange. Okay, it's very, very important that I'm looking at those columns, because now I'm going to go to the table, and this tells me I'm adding my terms, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply my first columns together, and I'm going to multiply my second columns together, and then add them up to see which ones to add to the middle term. That's my target. Has to be 23. So I'm looking for the one that gives me 23. I'm going to put that in my column over here. That's the one that I'm actually looking for. I'm going to put a little face over there. That's what I'm looking for. So if I go through this, I'm going to do 1 times 12, which is 12. And then I'm going to do 5 times 1, which is 5. If I add those up, 12 plus 5 is 17. That is not the numbers I need. I'm going to mark those out. I'm going to go to the next one. First columns, 1 times 6 is 6, plus 5 times 2 is 10. That gives me 16. That's not it. Does not give me my answer. I'm going to do the next one. 1 times 4 is 4, plus 5 times 3 is 15. That gives me 18. That's not it. I'm going to go to the next one. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 5 times 4 is 20, and 3 plus 20 is 23. Bingo, there it is. Now check the signs. My middle one was a positive 23, and my answer is positive 23. There's my set of numbers I need. Now, when I write my answer, it tells me now I'm going to write my binomials. Bring your first term straight down, and the 5x comes to the first term of your second binomial. Bring those down as they are in that order. And now remember, we're going to crisscross or flip-flop the second term. So the 4 must come to the front. It is a positive 4. And the 3 must go to the back binomial, and it is positive. This must crisscross. Let me change colors here. Where's my marker? I don't see my marker. But realize that must crisscross. Has to crisscross. And that will be your answer. Okay. Let's go with number 2. This is a minus plus type problem, but I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to take the first term and split it into its factors, which this one is just a 1 and a 3. Okay. I'm going to go to the last term and go 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5, and I believe that's it, but now I'm going to write it going in the other direction, completing my term so that I have it all the way down, frontwards and backwards. This tells me my numbers are both positives for this particular setup, or they are both negative, the same signs. My target number, middle term, is a negative 32. That's what I'm looking for. Remember, I'm adding them up. I'm going to highlight my columns. My first columns I'm going to highlight yellow. My second column I'm going to highlight orange. So you can see the numbers that I'm multiplying. I want to keep those together. Okay. Now here we go. Go multiply. 1, I'm starting at the bottom, notice. Always going to start at the bottom so I can get my answer quickest going through the bottom. Anyway, 1 times 20 is 20, and 3 times 1 is 3. If I add that up, I get 23. That's not it. I'm going to mark them out. Go to the next one. 1 times 10 is 10, plus 3 times 2 is 6. That's 16. Nope, that's not it. I'm going to go to the next one. 1 times 5 is 5. 3 times 4 is 12. That gives me 17. That's not it. The next one. 1 times 4 is 4. 3 times 5 is 15. That gives me 19. That's not it. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 10 is 30, and that gives me 32. Bingo! There's my number. Now look at the sign. My answer, my middle term, is negative 32. This is positive 32. So that means I need both of these to change their signs. Because they're both positive, now they must both become negative to get a negative 32. That means go back to your third term and make both of your answers negative. Both of them must change. Now, these are your factors you want to use in your answer. So if I write my answer now, oh, there we go. I'm going to write my binomials. Remember, bring the 1x into the front binomial and the 3x into the second binomial. And then remember, you must crisscross, flip-flop your second factors. So the negative 10 comes to the front and the negative 2 goes to the back, and there's your answer. Okay. Example 3. Here we have a plus minus setup in our problem. I'm going to find the factors of 33. That will be 1x and 33x. That will also be 3x and 11x. Factors of 4 are 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Now if I continue on, notice the 2, if I was to write 2 and 2 again, I just repeat. So the only other term that I have to complete this would be the 4 and the 1. So to complete my circle going all the way up and all the way down, I just have 3 of them. Now this tells me one of my signs, I'm subtracting them, so one of them has to be negative. So I'm just going to go down the left column and pick a side that I want to be negative to see if I'm correct. Now, the center term, by the way, just has an x. There's an understood 1 in that position. That is my target. That is my target that I'm looking for. So that's going to go over to my table because I want a 1 in that position. And notice it is a positive 1. That's my target. That's what I'm looking for. Alright, I'm going to highlight. My first column's yellow. And my second columns are going to be my orange. So that I can keep my column straight on what I'm multiplying. And if I take the first columns, I'm going to start at the bottom again. I'm going to do 3 times negative 4, which is negative 12, plus, remember, I'm still adding my terms together. And then the orange columns, 11 times 1 is 11. Negative 12 plus 11 is a negative 1. I got the right number with the wrong sign. Well, that means in my multiplying here, my adding, that 12 needed to be positive and the 11 needed to be negative, which means I need to go back to my terms in my third column, and which means this 4, I guessed wrong. That 4 needed to be positive and the 1 needed to be negative, and then there is my answers. That gives me the correct combination to get my middle term, because this turns to a positive at that point. So I'm ready to write my binomials right now. This one was fast. Now, the 3x comes to the first binomial. The 11x goes to the second binomial. And remember, you must crisscross. Otherwise, you will be completely wrong on this problem. So the first binomial gets negative 1. The second binomial gets positive 4. And that is your answer. Okay, and last example. This one has a minus minus setup where both of them have a negative. I want to write the factors of the first term, be 1x and 10x, as well as 2x and 5x. Factors of 6 are 1 and 6, as well as 2 and 3. The 6 is negative, so that means one of these have to be negative, so I just make the left column negative. And then notice my target is negative 7, so I'm going to put that in my table. Negative 7 is what I'm looking for. I'm going to highlight my columns again. So my first column are yellow. The second column, is going to be orange. So I can keep my column straight when I'm multiplying. Starting at the bottom. 2x, or 2, times a negative 2 is negative 4, plus 5 times 3 is 15. Negative 4 plus 15 is 11. That's not my answer. Oh, I didn't complete my chart. Oh, did y'all see that? I started before I even finished. I didn't complete this. So this is 3 and 2, as well as 6 and 1. I goofed. I need to complete my chart. Okay, let me finish out highlighting that, and now let me multiply. I started in that middle, so I know those aren't my terms at least. Now let me go at the bottom here. 2 times negative 6 is negative 12, and 5 times 1 is 5. Negative 12 times 5 is, oh, guess what? There it is. Bingo. Negative 7. There are my terms. And my signs match too, so that means this the 6 was actually negative in my problem. So there are my factors I'm using. I'm going to write my binomials. 2x goes in the first binomial, 5x goes in the second, and remember, you must crisscross. That gives you a positive 1 and a negative 6, and that is your answer. Okay. On page 19, I have all of the steps to do this. Okay, so I want you to copy them down so you have them to follow. The first, it says factoring for the ax squared. These are a lot the same as what you have copied before, except for right here where it's red. This is different. It says pull out any GCFs if possible. Now on these, we didn't have any GCFs on these problems because we're waiting for that for the most complex problems will come on Friday for this particular setup here. So we're actually just skipping to number 2. List all the factors of the first term. Then we listed all the factors of the third term. Then this is where I created the little side table, and that's why I have this written here. And this is where I multiplied the first terms of the ax squared times the first factors of the c. And this is where I highlighted it in yellow. This was my yellow highlighter. Okay. And then on step 5, we multiplied the second factor of the ax squared times the second factor of the c, and this was my orange highlight. And then we added it to see if it matched the middle term that I was calling our target number. We're looking for that target. Once we found it, then we wrote our answers into, then we wrote our parentheses, and then we put our answers that worked, the ones that actually worked for the middle term target. The first terms went into our parentheses like they did before in the first positions. And then remember we flip-flopped, or I was also saying crisscrossed, the third factors of the third term that worked. We placed them in the second position when we had our parentheses. That was in the back position here in the second slots. Alright, make sure you have this written in your notes. I'll see you tomorrow.